Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Nikita. So Nikita, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Thanks for the intro, Dan. Excited to be on. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm the CEO and founder of Aspect. We're an email and SMS only agency, specifically helping with e-commerce, specifically helping e-commerce businesses with email and SMS.
Awesome. So how did you get into this business?
It's through a lot of failures and mainly just like niching down, I'd say. So started off with doing like print on demand, drop shipping t-shirts. And that taught me like the basics of marketing with Facebook ads, Google ads, social media, website setup and all that. Eventually had friends asking me like, how do I do this? And then other communities that I was a part of just start like doing free work essentially. And then started to charge people for that. And I'm like, okay, this is way more lucrative than drop shipping, especially after drop shipping is very saturated and whatnot. So started doing that, built that up to a pretty good client base, started to have employees. And then around 2021, we started to get very overwhelmed by trying to manage 5 different services for all the clients that we had. And it's like, okay, cool, we need to make a pivot. That pivot was email and SMS marketing. We had really good designers on hand. The client retention was really good and it just made sense. So since then, we've just been strictly email and SMS and haven't looked back.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to e-com, obviously there's lots of different verticals. So what kind of verticals do you work best with?
I think we knock it out of the park a lot for outdoors brands. We have like 2 or 3 outdoors brands that we've worked with consistently, and you'd be surprised to see like they're generating like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in revenue, and we support that with email, bringing them anywhere between like 50 to 60K a month in email revenue based off of, I think it was like 25 to 30% of total revenue is what we're bringing in through email.
Do you think it's helpful, say, like a higher AOV product as well?
Yeah, they do. They have the AOV for them is anywhere between like $100 to $200, depending on the category. So it definitely helps because you need to get a lot less customers to have a pretty successful campaign. So you can send out a campaign, it'll generate like $4,000 or $5,000, and it came from 20 or 30 people.
Right. So I guess like how do you kind of work in sync, right? Because if you're just doing email, obviously they have to be running ads, they have to have a good media buyer. So how do you kind of like work in sync with their team to make sure that they're doing their part to capture new business?
Yeah, so we actually, with a lot of the referrals that we get, we have like a team Slack. So like my team's connected and their team is connected and we kind of work in tangent. So if they're like, hey, this new offer on the ad site is working really, really well, can we try it on an email? And vice versa. It's like, hey, we tested out this new offer on email. We think it might be a good creative angle for you guys to run. And it just works very well in sync. A lot of it just happens in Slack, to be honest with you. And most clients also, like if they're not like a referral client and they're just like a new client that came on board and we don't know their paid ads people, we try to have like at least like one sync call to see like, okay, how are the ads performing and whatnot, and build that relationship with them as well.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like if the ads aren't performing in the way that you want them to perform, like how do you make sure that you're continuing to scale up on email and SMS?
Yeah, exactly. That's a solid question. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to just doing what's worked. The worst time to be trying out new things is when ads aren't working and you don't have that main revenue driver coming in. So if ads are starting to tank, that's when we start to do a lot more. I hate to say the word promos because, that's just discounting your brand, but promos do help in those like small, like short bursts of ads failing, or if your ad account got busted, whatever it is, we do try to send out a lot more frequent campaigns just to capture a lot more revenue and help stabilize cash flow when ads are not performing.
Makes sense. So I think now there's a big challenge when it comes to email as well because of like the new restrictions and regulations. And We actually I'm talking to somebody who has a company that has funding from Mark Cuban from Shark Tank, and actually Mark has sent out like an email to everybody when this whole change happened. He's like, "Oh, email is going away. Don't like invest in email." He's very anti-email. So I guess I'm curious, like, how do you kind of go against that tide and make sure that you're still able to have high, good rates when it comes to delivery and things like that?
I mean, I think the notion of saying like email's dead and email's not working is it's like a fallacy almost because
Right.
it's the rails of the internet. Like, what else are you going to use as like the main communication point for anything that you use? Like, I don't know, it was just like baffling to me of like people saying email is dead when we have countless case studies of that not being the case. But at the same time, it is actually growing as a channel. I think half the world has an email address and
Right.
more people have an email address than they have running water, which is
Right.
like, okay, what's going on here?
Right. Right.
So we don't really have that many issues on the deliverability side. The only issues we've experienced, and this has mainly been this year, is when Google and Yahoo enacted new policies for higher verification on the email sender side. So we had to develop new strategies for clients that were getting affected through the new switch. And for the most part, all of our clients came out on like relatively unscathed. So, and when it does happen and when, shit hits the fan, essentially, we have a deliverability rehab protocol that we follow where it involves utilizing higher engaged audiences. So instead of using the entire list, we kind of chop the list down in half or into thirds where we only target the most engaged people and slowly build up trust with Google, Yahoo, Apple, whichever domain provider started to get affected the most to build up trust, credibility that like, hey, we're not sending spam, we're not a Nigerian king, and that everything is good. We're a normal company, and that
Right.
helps build trust, expand the audience as more trust is built, and then we're back to the normal list again.
Hey y'all, it's Dan Melnick, the CEO of Zing, and I wanted to share a special offer for all of our listeners. Right now, if you need software development services, we'll give you 2 weeks of a free trial. Do you need to update your website? Do you want to build a mobile app? Do you want to update something that you've been working on for a long time? We've worked in a high-level technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain. So shoot me a text, 817-874-2208. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I always tell people, I'm like there's a difference between cold email and people actually like subscribe, right? And they want to
Yep.
get the emails from their favorite companies, right? So it's a very different cadence.
Yeah, it's because like when people opt in, they actually engage with your emails, whereas with
Right.
cold emails, they open them and likely either block you, unsubscribe, tell you no thanks, or
Right. Right.
call you a scammer. And that hurts your domain reputation in the long run. And that's why you burn out your cold email addresses if you send
Right.
too much.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very different cadence. So what about SMS? Like how does that work for you like in today?
Yeah, so SMS is a pretty good channel. I'd say for the most part, it's very useful for brands that are in the sub 100 AOV range, mainly because SMS is such an impulse. So if someone gets an SMS, they're like, okay, cool, this is great. They buy something because it's a very small commitment. Whereas some brands that we have right now, where their AOV is anywhere between 500 to like $2,000, it's more of a nurture play. And that's where we send them blog information, any information about the product, any nurture-based SMS messages that help push them towards the conversion, but less likely convert because you need more information about the product. If you're spending $2,000 on something, you kind of want to do your research. And that's where email comes into play as a really good, channel to teach them more about the product, send them videos, that sort of thing.
Percent. So obviously internationally, people are using more like WhatsApp. So do you have clients overseas and do you leverage that channel as well?
Actually, I haven't done any WhatsApp marketing, to be honest with you. We've mainly just stuck with SMS, and most of our customer base and most of our clients are US based, or if they are international, the client base is in the US or the customer base is in the US. So we haven't had to go through that, but I'm sure eventually we'll have to cross that bridge and start to figure out how WhatsApp marketing is used.
Yeah, because WhatsApp's an interesting channel. Like I've seen people that just run like overseas, like tons of these like, WhatsApp campaigns and they're killing it like on WhatsApp. So yeah, it's a great channel.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to study up a little bit on that when when I get some free time.
Awesome. So what would you say is like the biggest challenge that you currently face in your business?
I'd say finding good designers is like the biggest challenge. And we have a fantastic team here at Aspect, but trying to find those people is like trying to find a needle in the haystack. So, there's a lot of people that say like, yeah, I've done emails for these brands. And then you go through them and it's like, oh, you didn't. These are just screenshots of the brand. Like, let me see the Figma file with all the edit access or like the different frames and whatnot. So it's very hard to find someone that's like actually good. And it kind of makes sense because email marketing and an email marketing agency as a whole is a very new and very niche sort of career opportunity. So
Right.
for the most part, it's just people transitioning from traditional brand and packaging design or graphic design into email designers.
Right.
And the people that have already had a ton of experience are very expensive to hire. And the people that don't have a lot of experience think they're expensive to hire, but they're just having like a facade of design work that they're just unqualified for the job.
100%. So do you find people typically here in the US or Philippines, or kind of where do you find your talent?
Mix of both. So we look in Latin America, the Philippines, and US as well. US mostly for account managers and strategists, and then Philippines and Latin America for design, like boots on ground, like doing the design work and doing the creative work.
100%. Yeah, there's lots of good talent in Latin America and the Philippines. We have a team like in the Philippines as well, and like they're really good. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's best to have like if you're interfacing with Americans, you want to have Americans managing the accounts 100%.
Yeah, I know we're living in a very PC world, but when it comes down to like business and brass tacks, like business owners want to talk to other people in the US, and it's
Right.
nothing against them. Like if I'm paying $4,000 a month for an email agency, like I don't want to be talking to someone outsourced because that just not only hurts the reputation of yourself as the service provider, but it
Right.
also may tarnish that client from re-signing after the initial agreement or feel like they've been swindled almost.
100%. Yeah, I mean, that's super important. And like I always tell people, like we're the same way. Like when it comes to our business, where we have, teams overseas, would have like a partner in Jersey and I'm here in Texas, and like we're in the US talking to all of our clients. So what would you say is like the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started this company?
I think getting better at sales, like that's like the first 3 years of me, like being in the digital marketing space or running that Shopify drop shipping store. I knew online sales okay-ish at the time, but like if I were to start the store again with all the things I had back then, it would not succeed at all. But we're getting better at that. But from the sales side of converting like anyone that might be a client into an actual client has been like the biggest like hurdle that I've just been always working on, whether it's like sales calls, sales strategies, ways to book in appointments, that sort of thing. I didn't realize how important it is, which, it makes sense. If you're not selling, you're not making any money.
Exactly.
So I think that's always going to be a hurdle that I'm trying to get past or trying to get better at consistently because it's only getting more competitive. There's only more agencies popping up, only more people watching courses and trying to start agencies. So
Yeah.
it's only going to get harder.
100%. Yeah, I mean, sales is super important. And it's just like, for me, it's the same thing. It's not like natural for me, but I've had to learn, even like in person, to go into like networking events, meeting people. How do you connect and kind of leverage those conversations? So, if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you see things going for your business?
I think we probably have like 2 or 3 more team members on board, probably another US account manager hired, depending on the trajectory. We'd have a more consistent lead flow. Not that we don't right now. We have a pretty
Yeah.
good, solid lead flow, but we're implementing ads in the next month or so. So that's going to add a lot more, I guess, actually paying for people to book in a call, which is like, you put in $300 for a booked call, you get out a couple $1,000s or however much they pay for the project. So that's going to add a lot more stability to the business, or at least less down months. So, if clients churn, okay, we need to raise ad spend so that way we can sign on more clients or at least start more conversations in that sense.
Right.
So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to.
Awesome. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your website, social media, or just best ways to get in contact?
Yeah, I actually run a YouTube channel that goes through anything and everything you need to know about email, SMS marketing, etc. So strategies, copywriting, design, etc. There's that. Instagram, Twitter is really good. LinkedIn's good. It's just my name, Nikita Vakhrushev. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's aspectagency.com, ASPEKT agency.com.
Awesome. Well, Nikita, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure and best of luck.
Thanks, man. You as well.